Mm. I want first thank you for your question. Now, I am a being of energy. A being of energy, right? Ancient. Ancient. Gunnar. Billions of years old. Gurana. And I've been here with you all that time. All that time. I am a part of you. And you are a part of me. As is true for all beings. All beings. And we all of us, deities of the earth and humans, we are all part of our living world. The living spirit that is Gaia. Just as Gaia is a part of our living cosmos, our living cosmic being. We are one family, one life. And each of us characters in the same story. Humanity has forgotten. Much of humanity, I should say. There are places that still remember. And there are those who are starting to remember. Remember. Remember.
Welcome back to the Natalie Rustic podcast. It has been such a long time since I've recorded a new video, and so I am happy to say I'm back and I'm excited, and I welcome you to today's incredible guest, Jack Morrigan. He is a spiritual teacher at School of Goddess and Dragon Magic. Prior to all of this, Jack was actually an atheist who had quite the spiritual awakening through watching an Ekart Tolle video. And if you guys can stick right through till the end, Jack will channel the Morrigan for us. They are billions of years old light beings, and this is something I'm sure you do not want to miss. So stay tuned, and without further ado, I welcome you, Jack Morrigan.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, and like that we've like connected before. It's a really lovely way to be doing an interview like this. Like, it feels like we already know each other.
Pleasure to have you here. I thought I would start the podcast off by talking about your background, because I've been following you for some time and you're quite a spiritual being, which I absolutely love. However, I didn't know that you were an atheist beforehand. So can we sort of start there, get some background into who Jack was prior to this awakening, and yeah, give the viewers a bit of a backstory.
So, like, I was born into a home that was like a mixture of atheist and Christian. So my dad was like anti-religion, and my mum was Christian, and still is. So I didn't have like any kind of spiritual upbringing, really. Like, childhood was traumatic. It was a very difficult childhood. And then in my teenage years, I got into like alcohol and drugs as a way of coping with the stress of that. And in my early 20s, like I was in the rave scene and pretty much like dependent on alcohol and drugs in order to function. And it was around that time that I had the awakening. But my attitude, like throughout all those years, was like, I'm anti-religion. I believe in science. Like, I believe that this world is just made of material, and we just happen to have consciousness. Like, it's a quirk of evolution. And when I die, it's gonna disappear, and there
Yeah.
will be nothing.
And so that was your belief prior to this awakening. You just thought, well, when we die, it just ends and it's no more, it's game over.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in any, like, I didn't believe in any spiritual beings or any mystical beings or anything like that. Like, so, there's no angels, there's no deities, there's no
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. And so I understand that you're now a channeler. You talk about manifestation, sex energy, dark magic, and sort of balancing all these different things. But let's dive into the friend of yours that asked you to look into this spiritual teacher. Let's dive into that
Oh,
and go
yeah.
from there.
Yeah. So, like, bearing in mind, I had that background, like, in atheism, and just was not interested in this. Um, then a friend just mentioned Ekart Tolle, was like, "Oh, have you ever heard of Ekart Tolle?"
Mm, he's
And
amazing.
yeah, yeah, very like deeply awake guy. But I hadn't heard of him. I had to Google what was actually meant by spirituality, like the word.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like he's a spiritual teacher. Well, what is that? Like, I don't know what that is. And then I was interested enough that I went on YouTube and I looked at one of his videos. And the moment I started looking at him, it's like the background just started to dissolve. Like, and I was just looking at him and he was
Yeah.
glowing,
Yeah.
like shining this light out of him. And I was like, well, why is he glowing? um, and I was completely like absorbed. Like, there weren't thoughts going through my mind. Like, I was just looking at him. I don't even know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and then I saw that one of his other videos was how to stop thinking. So uh, I was like, is that a good thing? Like, to try to stop thinking? Like, should we not think? Um, and then I guess I was just like taken by this curiosity about it all. And I decided I would sit on my bed and try to meditate and see if I could stop my thoughts. Um, and I just like breathed in and out. I moved my hands back and forth. I just did what I'd seen people do in films because I had no knowledge of meditation at all.
I will just stop you there real quick because before you jump into what happened after the meditation, I just wanted to bring up you were obviously an atheist beforehand. And so for an atheist to sort of just dive into meditation and look into spirituality, there would have been some sort of like a push for you to go there. So was there some sort of a trigger for you to go, okay, maybe I should look into this? Or was it sort of genuine curiosity?
It was genuine curiosity. It was like um, things had been changing in my life at that time.
Mm.
Like uh, things had felt very stuck for a long time. But I decided not long before then, I decided that I was gonna stop taking drugs or like do them less. Like,
Yeah.
I was getting tired, basically. I was just getting tired of it all.
Yeah, you're at the point where you
Um,
needed to make changes, right?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I could see how me and my friends were all enabling each other, like pressuring each other to keep going with drugs. Like, and it just felt really unhealthy. Like, and
Mm.
I didn't want it anymore. So that was changing. And then I also got a job in London. I was living in Cardiff at the time. So it was like, I'm moving to a new city. Things are changing in my life. Things are becoming more positive. I'm more open,
Mm.
like, to possibilities right now.
Yeah.
Um, so when she suggested that I check this guy out, I was like,
Why
okay.
not?
And so then I did that meditation, and to my absolute amazement, my thoughts did stop, um, and everything just became incredibly still, and there was this deep, deep peace inside of me, and it was like this really sensitive state. Like, um, it felt like if I did too much or moved too much, like it would stop. So it felt like I was holding a baby that had just fallen asleep, like, and I needed to be careful.
Yeah.
So eventually I kind of expanded it more. Like I opened my eyes, I looked around my room, and I could see like everything was like it was translucent, like, and radiant, like shining. Um, and yeah, I was in that state for about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And then I got snapped out of it, and I was like, okay, like whatever that was amazing. No
Yeah.
one told me about that, that was an option. Like I feel like I've just found the Holy Grail. And I think the first thought that came into my mind was like, this is the solution to my problems.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's amazing. Like looking back on it now, I can be like, wow, that was like a full blown, um,
Would you call
like,
that like a spiritual awakening?
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I've heard in Zen they call it like a satori or a kensho, I think. Like it just means like a glimpse of our true nature. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because our true nature is spirit. We are spirit in a human body. And so for you to meditate and not think and not be of the mind or of the body, you then become your true nature. So that's quite a beautiful thing for you to experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like I'm bearing in mind my background, like I hadn't heard anyone talk about this.
Mm.
Like you could also call it the presence of God, like if you were coming from a Christian background, but I'd never heard anyone talking about it like that.
Mm.
Like it's something that you just ordinary people just experience. Um, so it was mind blowing. It completely changed the direction of my life. Like completely changed it. Um,
Yeah. And so now you're channeling. Let's talk about the beings that you channel. So you channel Hathor, and you
yeah,
also and Hela, goddess of death, I believe. Is that the Norse goddess of death? Yeah, I did some
yeah, in the
research. I was
underworld.
quite amazed by that. Yeah. And then the Morrigan goddess. And I noticed your last name. Is that the Morrigan or is that your
Yeah,
last name?
that's her name. Yeah, so
Yeah.
just to fill in a little bit of the detail, like a few months after that that meditation experience, like I had a kundalini awakening, which I didn't know what it was, but I had this near death like experience going through a tunnel of light, where my consciousness blended with this ocean of golden light. And I
Wow.
came back from it, and there was this energy moving up and down my spine, with incredibly blissful and powerful. Um, and ever since then, my mind has been open. So I started experiencing all these things that I thought were just like in fantasy films and sci-fi films.
Yeah.
And again, like given the atheist background, like it's been quite an adjustment uh, to have these experiences, to have deities contacting me and speaking into my mind, and over years developing trust and like proving their existence is real. And
Yeah. Mm. That is a big one because I do often talk to people about that. So I've spoken to channelers before in previous podcasts, and I do ask the question, how do you discern the beings that are speaking through you? How do you know who they are and what they really mean? And protection as well, protecting yourself, protecting your
yeah,
energy. So we can also talk about that later on down the track as well. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's really important.
yeah, yeah. So why don't we talk to the viewers about your near-death like experience and why you think it's also a near-death like experience and sort of explain a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I describe it as near-death like because most of the near-death experiences that I've read about since, the person was in real physical danger, like
Mm.
maybe surgery or they're in a car crash or drowning, something like that. Um, and I want to honor like their experience and what they're having. So I don't want to use exactly the same term.
Mm.
But for me, it happened following a period of intense meditation when I was in a dream. So I was in a lucid dream and I was talking to a spiritual teacher and he was giving me a lesson. And when I realized the essence of the lesson that he was giving, the dream collapsed in on itself. I experienced like a physical sensation as though my spine was rotating backwards, like to this
Wow.
crazy angle. And there was this loud crack, like my spine had cracked. And then everything just plunged into darkness. And eventually, like I saw a light in the distance. It didn't even feel like I had a body. Like I don't know what I was at this point, but there was a point of light in the distance, and it started getting brighter and
Mm.
moving closer. And as it did, I was experiencing absolute terror, like like I'm going to be annihilated kind of terror. Like it felt like more than anything I'd ever experienced or anticipated experiencing. It was right to the core of me. Um, and but along like so half of it was this terror, but then the other half of it was intense bliss, like
Oh.
orgasmic bliss.
Yeah.
And they're both growing.
I have heard that
Um,
numerous times and actually quite interested to know a
uh,
little bit more about that as well. Yeah.
mm,
Mm.
yeah, that I I can reflect on it now and be like, the sexual nature of reality, like
Mm.
that our true essence like has an orgasmic quality to it that we experience
Yeah.
during sex. Like we have like this mini like return to ourselves. I
Yeah.
know in French, like the word for orgasm can be translated as like the little death.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, like I relate to that. It's like I've been there, in like a more vivid way. And it does feel like there's a link there between death and sex, which links into the deities, that I'm connected to, who are often
Yeah.
deities of death and sex. Yeah, I think there's a reason why those things are linked together, because if you're able to perceive these processes on a deep level, you can see that they're coming from the same place.
Mm.
And, like sex being the way that new life is created, like there's a
Yeah.
death and then there's a birth. Like
That's right.
the yeah, the flows of these energies, there's reasons behind it all, and that
Mm.
kind of comes through in our language in certain ways.
Very beautiful described. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm not even, sometimes I get like these downloads of information, like, and I'll talk as if I've known something for a long time, but it's the first time that it's coming to me, and like that's coming up now.
I'm so glad you
um
mentioned that. I'd like to talk about that again because that does often happen to me as well. And I talk to friends about it. It's like a download of information. You didn't think up the word, so to speak. It just sort of came out, and I call it word vomit. So it just comes out. I don't think about it. So,
mm, yeah, definitely, it's a real thing, and I think it happens with people who are in a spiritual teaching role all the
mm,
time. And like I used to just assume that they know everything that they're talking about. Um, but the more I understand this whole process, the more I realize that often people who are put on pedestals, they're just serving as a channel for divinity, and their
yeah,
humanity is learning as much as the people that they're supposedly teaching. And I think that's an important thing to talk about, because it's easy to idealize someone and worship someone, think that they're better than you, and ignore the human level of them. And it really needs to be talked about as much as possible, I think, because there's so many abuse of power situations going on, and everybody feeding it, like the person who's being idolized is feeding it, and then the people idolizing them is feeding it. And I think we need to just kind of destroy those myths and be able to acknowledge the humanity of people at the same time as appreciating the wisdom that can flow through.
Beautiful. I'm so glad to have you on the show here today. So much
Oh,
wisdom and knowledge to be shared. It's a beautiful thing.
you're very welcome. Very
Yeah.
welcome. I'm very fortunate that I had the teacher that I had. So I was taught by a woman called Fran Bennett, who really taught me mostly just about how to be human. And she just led by example, and she'd had very profound spiritual experiences throughout her whole life, could see angels and celestial beings from childhood and just always saw them. Like these very evolved states, but she was incredibly humble and just an ordinary human being, and didn't try to put herself on a pedestal. And when people tried, she would actively point out why they were wrong.
Yeah. And that also might tie into the fact that there's a huge belief that we are all connected and we are all one. So no one really by default is better than anyone else, because we are all each other. Like I am you, you am I. We're connected on that level. So being humble, I feel like, is closer to spirit than anything.
Yeah, definitely. And that's quite a nice segue like into the deities and all those beings, because we do the same with them. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't believe in any of those things for a long time. So
Yeah.
like that was the angle that I was coming from. But then I started experiencing them. Like I'd have out of body experiences where I would meet angels. And I was just
Yeah.
like, obviously they're real. I've met them.
Yeah. Like, hello, I've just seen this. You can't unsee this thing that I just seen. It's
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. We're trailing off a little bit. I wanted to put you back to this, to where you were talking about when you're in the black space and you saw the little beam of light.
Yeah. So it got brighter and brighter as it did. I felt like I was going to die. And it's so difficult to put that into words, like what that was like, because it wasn't like an idea, like I think I'm going to die. Like I was experiencing death. Like
Wow.
it was like in the core of me, like everything that I knew and had built my world on was being shaken and torn apart. Like and it felt like I was being torn apart, like my
Yeah.
essence,
Wow.
which is terrifying.
Yeah.
um, but alongside it, there was this incredible, like orgasmic, blissful sensation and this beautiful light. So I was like, what's happening is good. Like, this
Yeah.
is a good thing, but I'm terrified of it. And it's shaking me to my core. Um, at some point in the experience, like I could hear my own voice screaming, like as if I've never screamed like that,
Yeah.
like ever. But if someone pushed me off a cliff, I think I would scream like that. It's that kind of instinctive, primal death scream.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to imagine in my
um,
mind like what it is you're going through. That's crazy.
it was wild. It was wild. It was like the best theme park ride ever. Um,
That makes sense. A bit
um,
of terror with a bit of excitement. Yeah.
yeah, it would like I think death is like the ultimate thrill. Um, not that I'm encouraging anyone
Yeah.
to do that, but like this kind of like spiritually initiated form of death was amazing looking back on it. But the light, like eventually it got so close to me, like it was all that I could see, so I couldn't see any more darkness. But there was like an invisible barrier between me and the light, and I felt like the presence of some kind of being around me.
Mm.
And without words, it said to me, would you like to cross, essentially? To which I answered, like, absolutely not. Like, no way. Like, if I cross that threshold, I will be annihilated. I know what's going to happen. Like, I will be annihilated. So no, I don't want to cross. And it's like that presence was like a benevolent parent. Like, it was loving, and it's like it kind of acknowledged that fear in me and did what was best for me, which was just give me a little push. It
Definitely
took it
theme
out of
park
my hands. And like, I'm so glad that it did do that. Because if it was just down to my own free will, I would have said no, and I would have just receded back. Like, I wouldn't have crossed over.
Yeah.
I know that because I've had experiences like that since. But because they gave me a little push, I passed the threshold. And the moment that I did, like, all the fear completely disappeared. Like, it had never, ever been there. And all that I could experience was this, just like an ocean of golden light that seemed to go on forever. And this orgasmic, blissful feeling. Which, it sounds like very nice. And like, I know some people have experiences like this, and it's like really, oh, it's so peaceful or something. And I'm sure there are places like that. But for me, the place I went into, it was, the only word I can use is intense. It was intense.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like being in an orgasm for an unknown amount of time. It's just intense.
Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah. And at some point I was like, I hope my body's okay. And then my awareness shifted into my body, and I became aware of what was going on in my body. My back was at a really weird angle, and there was this orgasmic energy moving up and down my spine, and it was so forceful, it changed the shape of my spine into this weird posture. I was just sweating, totally drenched. And eventually the energy calmed down and I fell asleep.
And that is what they call the kundalini awakening. Is that right? Is it the spinal fluid that goes from the base of your spine to the top of your head and back?
Yeah, like, again, I didn't know anything about it. I went into all of this stuff so blind and naive.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly scary for you.
It was. Like,
Yeah.
and I didn't know. I thought, like, I was at work the next day, and
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, is it going to happen while I'm at work? Like, I don't know the rules. Like, I was sat on my chair, just like, is it going to happen? And that like creates a lot of anxiety. Like, because it would be quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
Everyone would see. So it evoked those social anxiety fears that I have.
One question that I would like to ask is, throughout all of this that's happened to you, were you able to open up to anyone or even to just express what happened? Like, did you talk to anybody?
So I think I was part of like a Ekart Tolle online forum, and I remember writing a lot about what was happening on there, and kind of using it as like a public diary almost. Like, I had this feeling that I was supposed to say everything publicly. I didn't know why. So I would do that, and I'd get feedback, and it would be a mixture of kind of everything that I would want and everything that I was terrified of. Like, because some people were really judgmental, and especially when I started opening up to deities and talking about that, some people would just be like, oh, this is schizophrenia. You've got schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And that was like my biggest fear, to be labeled like that, because I worked in mental health research.
Yeah,
I was
that's
around
right.
that,
Yeah.
and I knew how people could interpret it, and I knew what could happen to me if
If that
really, I
information
think
got
it's
into the wrong hands. Mm.
yeah. And I think looking at it now, I can see like actually that's more like fears of the past, like how things used to be done.
Mm,
I think it's quite rare that someone who's um, like kind of together as me,
mm,
who's having these experiences, I don't think they would get sectioned.
yeah.
Um, but it was a fear. It still
Mm,
is. It still
yeah.
is. Like I can feel it.
So, Jack, tell me, when did the beings start to come through, and what did you think was going on? Was it like a voice talking? Did you hear something from outside of you? Was it your own voice you were hearing? And do you need to be in sort of like a trance sort of state? How does this all work, and when did it all begin?
Yeah, thank you. Um, so it started, I'd a guess I'd say about a month after the Kundalini awakening.
Mm.
I was watching this channel called Paul Selig.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't even know. Yeah, I don't know how I found him, but
Mm.
somehow I found him. And in one of his videos, he was talking about how to connect to your guides. And he was channeling them, and he was just like, "We're always there. You know, we're always there. You just need to turn your attention to us." So I was like, "Okay, I'll give that a try."
Yeah,
Like, and pretty much straight away, it started. And for me, it was like, I think once I'd set that intention, it started, and I was like, woke up one morning and I was asking myself questions like in my own mind, like just thinking about things. And I noticed that my head would
yeah.
either nod or shake in response.
Wow.
Um, and it happened for a while before I noticed it. And then I was like, hang on, are these my guides? And my head nods. And I'm like, oh shit.
Oh, wow, what's
Like,
going
oh.
on?
Yeah. And uh, like what I'm, so this is difficult for me to say without crying because like of what happened next was the first thing that I asked them was completely instinctual, like inside me. And I said, what's the purpose of my life?
Oh,
um, and they replied instantly, just from this place of complete like stillness, like it was so deep. And they just said, you're to be a teacher and leader of men. You're here to save humanity.
wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. And what a privilege for you. That's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it I didn't understand, like, because I could feel where it was coming from, like, and it was so deep and true. Like there was no arrogance to it, that there was no ego to it. It was a
Yeah.
statement of fact.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, like I wasn't in a place to be doing that.
Yeah,
You know,
because
this
I
is like
remember
8 years
your
ago.
background because you did mention the drugs, the partying, the raves, not knowing where
Yeah,
you're going to go. And so this would have just been like, wow, finally, I'm going to be something amazing. So that would have really pulled on your heart. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and it was such a contrast to where I was. Like I hadn't done any kind of emotional work on myself really. I'd had some spiritual experiences, but like I was not in a position to be doing that.
Yeah.
Um, but over time, like that has played out. Like it has played out in that way. Um, and I'm not, it wasn't coming through like in a sense of you are the savior, like you are
Yeah.
Jesus or anything like that. It's like you are part of the movement of consciousness, that is going to bring this about. You have a role to play in this as a
Yeah.
teacher and a leader. You're not the only teacher and leader, you are one of many. It's
That's
that kind
right.
of feel.
Mm.
um so yeah, that was difficult to deal with. Like it did a lot to my ego because like I attached to that initially, like as this oh, this will give me my worth now. Like,
Yeah, I
you know,
see. Yeah.
yeah. So it's been a big journey with that. But over time it's become more simple, and it's just, if I feel more aligned to their energy when they said it, you know, like it's just a statement of fact, and it's good and bad. Like there's not, it's not just good that, you know, there's responsibilities involved in that. You know, you've got to grow up as a person, and to be in that role, that there's lots of risks. You're going to take lots of, it's going to be scary. You
Yeah,
know,
there's going to
people
be
are not going to
judgment.
like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Because you, prior to all of this, like you said, you thought that you would have been, if you saw someone doing what you're doing, you wouldn't have believed it. You would have thought, wow, they're crazy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I can understand the judgment or the fear of what people might think. But I think that if people just have a few minutes to just express a part of themselves to you and open up to you and ask the right questions, they might realize that, wow, this is quite powerful. Because I believe that when you ask a channeler a question, the beings who come from a place of love always answer in such a great way that changes lives. So I can understand, you know, the work that you do is quite life-saving. Um, yeah.
Thank you. It's I guess, you know, it's funny because it's still surreal to me. It's
Yeah.
still surreal. Like even like it's been like 8 years of having like daily contact with these beings, but
Yeah.
it's still surreal. Um, and you know, to give a little bit more background on it, like the first deity I started connecting with was Kali, who's a Hindu deity. That came about because I was in a restaurant with someone, and she pointed out all these images of Kali that were all over the place and explained who Kali was. And like something happened in me where I was like, I am very interested in who this being is. Like, I want to know
Yeah.
more. And then I kind of, whenever I do things like this, it's almost like I just sort of tune in, or I send out like a call. Um, and I just kind of, it's just like, I want to connect with you. And then I'll usually very quickly feel a connection back, and they'll start speaking into my mind, sometimes without words. Like I feel it on the emotional level, and there's this
Yeah.
back and forth between us that happens very quickly. um, and it's like, you know, it's like having 10 sentences worth of conversation in one sentence, like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I just like know things, and I'll be like, it's hard to describe it. It's like,
Is it just
is it
like,
that?
yeah, is it just like information that just sort of comes through, like you feel the need to just say the words?
Like if I'm just having a connection with them, it's more just in myself, you know, it's this flow of energy back and forth. Like if I had a
Mm.
problem, it'd be like, oh, I'm feeling down about blah blah blah, and then they'd be like, everything's fine because of this and this, and I'm like, oh yeah, but what about that? And they're like, no, because of this and this. I was like, oh okay, yeah, no, I feel fine now.
That's amazing. Can I ask you something? It's a little off topic. Oh, not really off topic. But like, say you're lost somewhere, right? And you don't know directions. Can you ask them for directions?
Have I ever done that? I don't I don't think I've ever tried. It's
Yeah.
funny, like, so like I imagine this is true for everyone who channels. Like we have certain blockages around things. um so certain things I find very difficult to channel information about, and
Mm.
sometimes people will ask me. It's usually where it involves like predictions
Mm.
of the future and things. I don't think I fully trust it, probably because of my atheist background.
Yeah.
So for me to fully put my faith in them to answer it is a big deal for me. And I think that faith is necessary for them to flow the information through. Um,
Yeah. Okay. So trust is a big part involved. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and it takes a lot of time, or it has with me, like building that trust with them, like to make sure that they are real, you know, and they're sincere and they're coming from a good place and they are who they say they are, all of those things. Um, but I got a lot of validation early on. Like with Carly, I built a connection with her, and because I'd seen these demonic images of her, she can be quite a scary looking being with all these severed heads around her and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I automatically assumed that she would have this terrifying, monstrous voice and persona. So that's what I first heard from her. But then it's like she knew how I was interpreting her. And she was like, no, no, no. Mother Kali, Mother Kali, like emphasizing it so that I can understand who she is and interpret her voice correctly.
Yeah.
Because we'll, we're hearing their voice through our own filters. So if you have all these perceptions of them being a certain way, you'll hear that, and then it's up to the two of you together to fine tune the relationship, like so that you can really understand who they are. And I feel like, because a lot of the beings I connect with are like underworld deities, there's a lot of assumption about what they're like and a lot of indoctrination about what they're like, which changes the way that channels connect with them and interpret them. So my experience with them is that they are way more loving than they're generally thought of. Like I see like Hela, goddess of the underworld, as like this just beautiful, radiant. They're almost like kittens sometimes.
Wow.
Like
Interesting.
part of my calling in this life, and one of the reasons why the deities work with me in this way and channel through me, is because they want their name to be honored, or like it's like their name has been dragged through the dirt by mostly by religions, to be blunt about it, and it's been intentional to separate people from these deities, and to see them as negative and frightening. But they have a fierceness to them, but it's a fierceness that's born of love. And it's like the wolf mother protecting her cubs. It's that kind of fierceness. So with Kali, my relationship with her, like it evolved over time, and I would have times where I'd be laying in bed and I would just feel this like sharp, like razor sharp kind of energy moving through my body, like not in a painful way. It was quite like pleasurable, and it was her, and she would be talking to me and she'd say things like, I am the scalpel. Like, I am the scalpel, like the surgeon's scalpel, like cutting away like harmful parts of your energy field. And she would just do that to me, and it was lovely. But one of the things that happened, which people don't talk about so much, but I think it's becoming a bit more known, is that we can have romantic relationships with these deities. And the reason that I changed my name to Morrigan is because, first of all, the Morrigan is a Celtic deity of death, sex, and magic, who is very similar, well, has similar flavors to her as Kali, but she's connected to my own ancestry. She's connected to the British Isles, where I was born and raised, and my ancestry's from. So it felt right to do that, to shift from Kali to her. And when I was in a relationship, and when that ended, the Morrigan started to change the way that she interacted with me. It's kind of like she knew I was available and started to seduce me. And it became like this romantic relationship, which evolved into a marriage, like with her. But first of all, me finding out that spirit marriage was actually a thing that existed, and then her proposing to me.
Wow.
So there's a whole thing like that goes along with that. And I learned that actually this is something that's been happening in cultures throughout humanity for a long time. And it's a way for knowledge to be shared between the spiritual realms and the human realm, to help support the development of human consciousness.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, but yeah, I can channel them for you. I'd be very happy to.
I would absolutely love to
Yeah,
do that. I would love to know a bit about them and what is their purpose in channeling through you, and what is their true purpose in order to send through the messages that they want to send. Like why did they choose you?
yeah. So sometimes I talk in these languages that like aren't English. They're like these different languages. So I kind of talk in those, and it tunes me into those energies and those frequencies.
Mm.
So I'm kind of doing that now. I can feel. So the Morrigan is her title. Her title is the Morrigan, but to me, she's Morgana. Like that's
Morgana.
Morgana. Yeah, that's like our. It's like her first name, you know. Like so, on first name terms. Yeah, no, no. Ah, Morgana, Morgana, right? So this is Morgana speaking. What I'm doing right now is I'm tuning myself into him. He's obviously feeling a little bit apprehensive about channeling me publicly, so I'm going to keep his eyes closed. It makes him feel safer. But I feel fantastic. I feel fantastic.
Well, thank you so much, Morgana, for joining us and showing yourself to us. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you here today.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be here and to speak. Thank you, Natalie, for giving me the opportunity to speak myself and my truth into this world. I'm honored by your invitation, honored by your invitation.
Thank you. So I'd like to start by asking you, Morgana, what is the purpose of you channeling through Jack, and what brings you here today? Because I do feel a connection with you, and I do know that when I asked Jack to channel you, you jumped at the opportunity to come on board. So I would like to know, is there any messages you have for me or and for the viewers? And yeah, what is the reason for you channeling through Jack?
So, I want first thank you for your question. Now, I am a being of energy, a being of energy, right? Ancient, billions of years old. And I've been here with you all that time. All that time. I am a part of you. And you are a part of me. As is true for all beings. All beings. And we all of us, deities of the earth and humans, we are all part of our living world. The living spirit that is Gaia. Just as Gaia is a part of our living cosmos, our living cosmic being. We are one family, one life. each of us characters in the same story. Humanity has forgotten. Much of humanity, I should say. There are places that still remember. And there are those who are starting to remember. 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 To come back together. So that we can be in right relationship with one another. The same one being in relationship with itself. Rightly.
Morgana, how can we humans understand that we are connected, and how can we join the dots together? Where do we start?
Wonderful question. So there are many ways. I'll give you practical ways and I will give you mystical ways. I start with the mystical way. The mystical way is to open your heart now. Now. To the degree that you feel safe with me and my energy. Feel my energy. My energy is the wisdom that I hold and that I share with you. I share with you as an invitation to remembrance, to feel me, and to know me is to feel and know a lost part of your own self. So I invite your heart to open and meet me. Yes, this is the best way when listening to my words. To listen to my words, not to pick up on the information that's shared in the words themselves, but to touch the heart, to touch the heart that gives rise to these words. Touch in that, and you will begin to open to forms of knowledge that exist within you, and to realize that all the answers that you seek are held within your body, that your body is itself a complete library of information that reveals all mysteries of this great cosmic being that we are. So that is the mystical way, but I will give you a couple of practical ways to remember and to reconnect. So a very brief meditation. You bring your attention into the soles of your feet. And bring your attention into the soles of your feet. And you imagine that there are roots going down from the soles of your feet, right down into the center of our sacred earth. And you allow yourself to root there. You feel it. You allow your consciousness to descend. And there you rest. You rest in your sacred descent. And there you are within Mother Earth. You are one with her. And through your roots, you can welcome the blessings of the goddesses of the earth, like myself, like Hela, Nyana, and receive their blessings. This will help you to reconnect. It may take time. It may take time. But it can be, and it shall be. One last practice, you can go to a river, sit by the river, put your hand in the river, and talk to her. Talk to her. Say to her who you are, and where you're from, and what your background is, and what you wish to connect to her for. Honor her for what she is, this flowing being of life. Honor the water that she is, and honor the water that exists inside of you. Know that the water that you is in your body came from rivers and lakes and oceans, and will return to them, that you are part of one cycle of life. Honor it through your communion with the rivers that are around you, and they will reveal their wisdom to you, that will illuminate to you how you are connected and a part of this whole life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was absolutely incredible. Such a beautiful experience. And I just wanted to ask you, since you're billions of years old and you have so much wealth of knowledge, is it in your power to be able to find out about people's past lives and help them heal? Do you do things like that?
Yes, absolutely. I guide Jack to do that work. Definitely. You see, the reason why is because all of your past lives are stored within our great Mother Earth. All of them. She was there throughout all of them. In fact, you actually are her having the experiences of your life. You are our great Mother Earth. So, and you have been all along. So it's like, to her, she has a great mind inside of herself that stores every single memory of every single experience that you have throughout all your past lives. And sometimes you have traumatic times, you have challenging times, and you are not capable of healing them in that moment. So it becomes stored away for a later time, like a moment frozen in ice, stored both in you, in your body in this lifetime, or also in your, what I'll call your soul, and is transmitted through your lifetimes. But there is a place of it within you, a frozen memory, and there is a place of it within our great Earth Mother, a frozen memory. And what I do, the work that I lead through Jack, is soul retrieval, which is the thawing of these frozen parts, both within you as a being, a human being, and within the Earth herself, so that those two parts can come together again, because there's a disconnection between what is in you and what is in Mother Earth. So I create the right environment, energetic flows, to enable that to take place. And it causes a reunification of the soul. You could call that also healing trauma. It's essentially the same thing. But here I'm talking about it more from a spiritual perspective, because there are great movements of spiritual energy involved. As a deity of the underworld, it is my business to ensure that souls are reunified. So this is my work. This is my work. And I do this through Jack because I have to have a human who I can channel my energies through.
Morgana, can I ask you about the underworld? As some of the viewers watching may think it's a hellish-like place. However, I do understand Jack has mentioned that it's not that. So if we could talk to the viewers a bit about the underworld and where you're from.
Yes, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. So if you look at your world, right? The world that most of you see, it contains both good and bad. There are portions of your world where wars are going on and torture is being inflicted that are hellish. And there are portions of your world where everyone is living in harmony and peace that are heavenly. So the same is true in my realm. The same is true in my realm. And the key is not whether a realm is good or bad. The key is the balance, the harmony that that realm has with the rest of existence. So those in your realm, those who are harmonious, are those who are in tune really with all of the different elements around them, and those who are hellish are not. And the same is true in my world. I am in tune with the different realms. I have communication with the heavenly realms and with your realm and with many other realms that are beyond your comprehension. I have that. That's a part of me. And as such, you could say I'm an enlightened deity of the underworld, because my mission is harmony. So I destroy things that are harmful to harmony. And I give birth to things that are helpful to harmony. I destroy the disconnection between parts of your soul so that your soul can be reborn whole. That is my mission, and the healthy, in alignment parts of the underworld are like this. It's just like in your soil, there are worms that digest things and keep the soil healthy. Though I don't like referring to myself as a worm, perhaps I am far more grand, it is the same principle. Yet there are negative forces in my realms, in these realms, the underworld. So there are malignant aspects, and those manifest themselves into your world. But my mission is to, if you like, eat those. I eat them, I digest them, and turn them into something else.
Wow. Like a transmutation of energy.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Morgana. And if I could just ask you one more question, not to take up too much of Jack's energy.
That's okay.
Thank you. I would really like to ask your take on tips to manifest, because I do like to ask this to channelers quite often, as this is very well talked about, and many people out there are wanting to manifest a better life for themselves. What is your take on how this all works, and how can we use it?
Absolutely. So I guided Jack to a book, which I want to reference right now before referencing our own work. So the book that we want to reference is a book called Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott. And in this book, she talks about the need to create awareness and unity within your shadow, and to truly meet all the parts of you that are subconsciously manifesting all the time. So you may consciously believe that you want to be wealthy, but unconsciously you don't. You actually enjoy poverty. And you can be consciously using manifestation tools to amplify the wealth that you have. But within an unseen portion of your own self, you are sabotaging all of those things because you don't actually want it in the fullness of your being. Within your underworld, you don't want it. So she has practices that help people to align to that, to go into their underworld and create unity between the underworld and their conscious self, and then manifest from there. Far, far more powerful way to manifest, and it was a way known to many peoples throughout human history and is still known. It's one of the cornerstones of alchemy. You have to go into the shadow and understand what's there before you're able to really create anything. You have to face yourself. All the mythologies. If you look at the mythological tales throughout all cultures, they talk about this. Going into the underworld, learning what's there, and then rising out of it. So that is what we teach through my sister Hella. My sister Hella downloaded into Jack's consciousness a mythological journey that he teaches as the Hellraiser's course. And he guides people throughout this journey, starting with the elements in their regular consciousness and then descending down into the underworld to create unity. To create unity, which we support by navigating the movement of soul energy within the underworld, and then rise up out of it into the heavenly realms where you can manifest from a soul that is more whole.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us, Morgana, and thank you so much for answering my questions. It was an honor.
Oh, thank you so much. The honor is mine. The honor is mine. I appreciate you, Natalie. I appreciate the work that you're doing and your own journeys into the underworld. I appreciate your own journeys, you know. This is such an important dimension of life. And sometimes within these spiritual communities, there is an overemphasis on love and light. There is an overemphasis, which I will speak directly, is rooted in fear at times. Fear of facing the underworld. But as you know, the underworld will come to you eventually.
Yes.
And you'll be taken there. And it may be painful and difficult. But as I believe you've seen, there is a great dance at play.
Yeah.
And being taken down there has its benefits.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And I would like to say I think I'm there at the moment.
Right. And the question then is, well, how can you make this place a home? How can you make this place a home? You see, the underworld, it's like, it's a living being. It's a living being. And when you resist it, it's like resisting a friend or a family member or a part of yourself. It starts to take on the qualities of your resistance, like quicksand. But if you relax, if you start to understand where you are, the mystery of it, the nourishment of it, then it starts to take on those qualities. And instead of being an enemy that you need to fight against, it turns into your most supportive ally.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. You're finally giving me a voice to share myself with this world. So I'm very grateful to you and to your listeners who are listening to this message. All I ask is that you maintain an open heart. Maintain an open heart and acknowledge the underworld that is in you, so that you can play your part in the great healing of humanity right now. You all have a magnificent part to play, and you are all characters in this epic journey. Claim your worth, and stand tall. So I'm going to go now. I'll let Jack's consciousness return. Thank you. Thank you for the gift of this invitation.
You're very welcome. That was incredible.
Oh, yeah, that was wonderful.
Wow.
It's me again.
That was such an amazing experience. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to her. Yeah.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've got tears in my eyes because, like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. That really is a gift. Such a beautiful gift. You get to help so many people. I honestly felt a little bit of healing when she said that last part. Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor. It's like going back to the start of the conversation, you know, with me being atheist. This is obviously quite outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, such a huge transformation. And your family members, your friends, what do they say? Have they noticed this huge change in Jack?
I mean, people have noticed a huge change for sure. Like, I remember talking to one of my old friends, and he was just like, "You're like a completely different person." Like in a positive way. And it feels like that. I feel like I was reborn, like I died and I was reborn through that kundalini experience. And I've just been learning how to walk since then, and integrate it into my humanity. But you know, I don't talk to my family about much of what I do, because I think it's just way out there for them.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky, like I have some amazing friends now, who, you know, are just totally open to this or do it themselves, and I feel very much at home with them.
Yeah. One thing I did want to ask regarding your channeling, because you have a medicinal background, background in psychology, counseling, do you think that that was something that you needed to do in order to build up the vocabulary to channel better? Like, is there any sort of things that you need to do to get better words and better vocabulary?
Um, I think like it's like I was always destined to be this
Yeah.
this person who's like a channel and a healer, and to work with people to help them to become that and to heal themselves. So I was just trying to become that through what I was aware of at the time. Like I was aware of medicine and I was thinking from a scientific perspective. So I tried to become a doctor. And then that became an interest in the mind and psychology. And then when I started having spiritual experiences, I went into that level. It was like I was always drawn to what was the deepest level of healing.
Yeah. And another thing, you said you saw angels.
Yeah.
What do they look like, if you don't mind? Would you be able to describe them? Did you see them?
So there's a few different ones. So some of them, like I didn't see them. Again, this is something like I'll probably cry talking about this because like they are
It's a
incredible.
very safe space here.
Yeah, I feel it. Um, so I've had a few experiences with them, and like I'd have an out of body experience, and I would just hear their voice calling to me, like Jack, like come over here, like, and you can't put into words like what that's like to hear an angel calling your name, like their energy is like so clean.
Yeah.
um the words don't matter, it's like where it's coming from, and it's shocking. It was shocking to me. It's like I didn't know something like that existed, but at the same time it just feels like home. um but I feel like I came from there, you know, like that's my home, and it's bittersweet to talk about because I
Homesick.
miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I felt that. Yeah.
yeah. But at the same time, it's wonderful because it's like, oh, that's real. And, you know, I'm going to go back there, and many of us will go back there.
Mm.
That's beautiful. But the one that I actually saw with my own eyes was just like made of light, like golden light. Like they looked like a human being, but like without a face, like just golden light.
Mm.
And they floated in through my window when I was having an astral experience.
Yeah.
And they performed like an energy healing on me. They didn't say anything, nothing. They just like looked at me, and it like like sucked all the fear out of me.
Incredible.
Um,
So,
yeah.
how often, Jack, do you have these astral projections and lucid dreaming? Is this quite often for you?
Um, Not these days. Like I used to, like right after the kundalini, it happened a lot.
Mm.
Um, but these days it's maybe once a month I might have some sort of astral projection. And for me, it's all around the Morrigan at the moment. Like the most recent one that I had, she was guiding me out of my body, and I could feel her presence.
Mm.
Because like we've never connected in the astral realm.
Yeah.
And she wants that. Like she's very keen to have that. Um, and in this most recent one, like I could feel her, like, and it's like I just needed to go through this kind of threshold to meet her. So I was trying to do that, and I could hear her voice, like her actual voice, which was the first time I've heard it, like, you know, coming from the space around me, like she's speaking it.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. Um,
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah, like for me, it's more like I hear them all the time, like I can feel them all the time, and I can tune into different ones, and that's like the constant for me.
Do you have any tips and tricks for the viewers watching and myself, of course, because I'm a spiritual nerd? I haven't astral projected as an adult, although there is one experience I had that I feel like, okay, that wasn't a dream. But to consciously astral project, is there any tips that you have to be able to do that?
I don't think I'm the best person to ask, because when they come up for me, it's almost always spontaneous, and it'll be, you
Yeah.
know, a being is kind of calling me, and I'm answering their call. But I know there are people who like are very in tune to that.
Mm.
But something that I can help with that can be like a kind of stepping stone to that is like how to connect with your guides, um, like how to have a relationship with them. Um, and one of the ways that I found works quite well is to, I think it's called automatic writing.
Yes. Yeah.
So you just like, you can write down like a question, like, how do I connect to my guides? And then without really trying to think about an answer, you just let yourself write. You kind of go into a trance like state and just allow yourself to write. Um, and I found that over time doing that, I could tune into their energy, and it's reached a point where at any time I can just write as them, you know,
Wow.
like, or speak as them. But you need to know the frequencies. Like,
Yeah.
um, you tune in and you get that, like they used to teach me, and they would say like, feel my signature, like feel my signature. And you can, there's an energetic quality, a feeling
I think
tone.
I understand that, not in a spiritual way. So, with my ex-partner, I used to always turn around when I knew he was coming. Is that kind of an example as feeling their signature? It's like you know they're coming in a way.
That's a great way. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Like,
Yeah.
because you can, I'll get it sometimes, like there'll be an entity, like, and it's like, oh, something's trying to connect to me, like something wants to speak to me. And then I can tune into that and be like, oh, who are you?
Hmm.
And then they can start explaining things and you can move back and forth. I had a strange experience when I was in a plane once where I felt that, and I turned to it and the response was, "You're not supposed to be here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they were like, I was like, "Are you like beings from the sky?" It's like, "Yeah, you're not supposed to be here." And like, "Oh." And then I got really moved because I was like, "Oh, we're being really disrespectful. Like humans, we're just like flying through the sky, like no acknowledgement of their existence, like no
Yeah.
honoring of who they are and that we're traveling through their home." And I like apologized for that. Like,
Yeah.
and on behalf of everyone in the plane, like who is not, most people don't have the ability to do this. So I apologized on everyone's behalf. And the tone of the beings changed completely from this, like, "Why are you here?" kind of angry, to "We love you," basically.
Yeah.
like, like, "We see who you are. We see what you are. Like, we want to work with you to help build bridges between humanity and the spirit realms."
Yeah.
Like, they just want to be honored.
That's right. And Jack, can I ask you to talk to the viewers a bit about your school and what you do, and tell them, where they can find you and how they can get sessions with you, sorry, for channeling and guidance.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. It's funny because we've been talking about this, and everything that's been going on for me, but we haven't even touched on the dragons.
Yeah.
And like, there's this whole other thing that I didn't believe in, that has materialized in recent months. But basically, I started to connect with dragons, and they were quite insistent that I found a school of dragon magic, which has now evolved into My Rising Rose School of Goddess and Dragon Magic. It didn't feel right to leave the goddesses out, so they've been included. And it's called My Rising Rose because the dragons are the dragons of the Rising Rose. That's their group, what they're called.
Yeah.
And so I have a website called, it's myrisingrose.com. So you can go on there and see what we're offering. And it's a range of different talks and courses and one-on-one sessions, which are really just designed to help you find peace within yourself and to awaken to these deeper realities that are really your birthright, to have access to these, to know who you are and to feel the deep nourishment of that. I feel like so many of us feel lost and alienated in this chaotic world,
Mm.
but there is a wealth of resources that's right here that we can tap into and that have tangible benefits to our lives. Like, relationships become easier when you have the support of all of this energy. You can tap into an inner resource that keeps you healthy instead of projecting it out onto other people and then having
Yes, that's
difficult.
right. Like you said in the channeling session, to go into that dark space and really get to know it, get to love it, release it, become part of the real version of you. So it's like an inner healing in order to have better relationships, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because our relationships are a reflection of our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we're able to become whole in the underworld, and bring those lost parts of us back together, then that will
Mm.
be manifest. We will just naturally manifest it,
Mm.
because it's what we know ourselves as.
Mm.
At the moment, we don't really know ourselves, so we don't know what we're manifesting.
Yeah. I would like to say that I'm on a big soul journey because, as you know, I've gone through a separation, and now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, I've got to fight the darkness within me, or not fight it, as you say, integrate it and learn me and figure out those parts of me that I've forgotten, and tie it all back together and just become stronger. And so I think that it's really important what you do from my perspective and from what I'm going through. So I'm actually quite excited to take a look at what it is that you do in order to help myself. So yeah, I'm really grateful to have you here and to talk about this. It's really important to talk about, especially today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
and so the big thing that I'm like wanting to talk about, which I can feel hella like being like, talk about this. So we, so I'm doing the first ever group version of my Hellraisers course at the moment. We're going to start on the new moon, the 19th of February. Um, so that's like the the big thing to be focusing on. And I can kind of feel Helen now, and she just like wants to say a few words, but it's like there is a special power that comes in when a group gather to heal. It's like you magnify each other. So when you're everything that you do will be magnified. And when you delve into the sacred depths, which is the underworld that is Hela's home, you will each add to each other's retrieval of your souls. So it's like you will guide each other back home. And the more of you who are there and the more of you who are open to this work, the stronger that becomes. So speaking as Hela, that's why I want to emphasize this program. It's called Hellraisers Together. Yeah, the new moon, 19th of February. Yeah,
What an
absolutely.
incredible little sneak peek into that. I absolutely love that. I'll have to check it out. And so how do we get involved into that? Is it through Facebook? Is it through online on your website?
Yeah, so the best way is to get in touch with me, and then we can organize a call where we can have a conversation,
Yeah.
like just a free, no obligation chat, so that we can get, attuned to each other and decide what's right for you. And you can contact me on Facebook. So I'm Jack Morrigan on Facebook, or my email address, which is jackmorrigan@myrisingrose.com.
Awesome. And for the viewers watching, I will link all of this information in the description box below. So if you would like to come along and get some amazing healing and learn through channelers of beings who are billions of years old, come along and let's have some fun and heal together. And again, that's on the 19th of February, and I look forward to being a part of it. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's so wonderful. I mean, it's fantastic being here. Like, just speaking as myself, it's so nice to be interviewed by someone who I actually know.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
been
really
pretty
lovely.
awesome. I often see all your posts on Facebook, and we've had to and fro conversation through Messenger. And it's funny, a
Mm.
friend actually sent a link to a video that you did with another friend of mine, Peggy, who I also did an interview with. And I just straight away was like, no way, this is Jack. I should tell him to come onto the podcast. This is fantastic. So yeah, it's really awesome to have you here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I really liked that synchronicity. I thought that was really interesting. And
Yeah,
it's
thanks
funny,
for
like, because
being.
I'd known you for a while, but I didn't know that you did this.
Yeah, and I didn't know, like, I kind of knew what you were doing, but I didn't know that you had the near-death-like experience, and I had the podcast. So I was
Mm.
like, well, obviously, let's do this. So yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, Jack,
fantastic. And
with
like,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, like when you mentioned the like interviewing me for this, like the deities were just like, it's like they were jumping around like with happiness.
I love that so much. I don't know, is that somehow because they know that I have a crazy obsession for channeling or wanting to know more about channelers? Did they pick up on any of that? Is that how
They
that
were just like,
works?
they were like, we want to like work with her, like we want to talk through this, like that. I
Yeah.
think, I don't want to say too much about it, but I think they can kind of feel your energy in some way, and they feel an alignment, and they're like, Yeah, like
Wow.
she's with us kind of thing. It was
Oh, so
that
it's
quality.
creating a safe space for you to say, yep, she's the one. You can be yourself, you can be comfortable, and just let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I
yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much, Jack, for joining me on the podcast. I do always ask my guests if they could leave with a positive note before we end the podcast. So, yeah, what would you like to leave the viewers with as a takeaway before we end?
Mm. Yeah, I'd love to leave something. So we're going through some challenging times right now. Like we're going through a big transformation in
Mm.
consciousness. And at times that will feel difficult. It will feel difficult. But the bright side is that we, humanity, are returning to the cosmic fold, which means that we are going to open to levels of reality and experience that we never ever thought were possible. And it's going to spread throughout humanity. And it will be the dawning of a new golden age. So that's the positive news.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you again for Morrigan channeling today. Thank you for sharing your story. And
Oh,
yeah, I really hope to hear from you again soon and bring you back on the show and do some more channeling. And yeah, thank you.
that would be wonderful. That would be so wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie. I really appreciate it.